Welcome everybody to a very special interview tonight with someone I look up to very much in more ways than one, at the piano, at the keyboards, as a composer, as a producer, as an educator. I'm so glad you're joining me tonight, and please welcome the great Mike Garson. Mike, great to have you.
So nice to be here in such a relaxed setting. I've seen a bunch of your interviews, and I've seen you play solo. It's such a nice thing to do, and especially in these times, I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. During COVID, this has been an interesting time for me to interview people I admire and that inspire me, such as yourself, but also a platform to play some music. And there might be some fans of yours that don't know about me, so I'll just do a quick introduction. My name is Josh, from Long Beach, California. I live in LA, and pianist, composer, and aspiring film composer as well, and I teach quite a bit. This is, like you were saying, Mike, I'm in the upper 30s of my show now, about 33, 34 episodes. So it really is a pleasure to talk with you. And a connection that we have aside from the music is that I've been able to have some time with your incredibly talented and sweet grandson, Jacob, teaching him some piano, which has just been really special for me.
I'm so happy you do that.
Yeah.
That's really good. Like I said, my other grandson, Max, will be with you in September. He's a drummer, but he really loves the piano. So it's nice when I stay a little separate as a teacher and bring in somebody with your talent. And I know you've done it with other Larry's kids in the past. It's a great thing,
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, I do love teaching. And
not every pianist is a great teacher or loves teaching, I had 3 lessons with Herbie Hancock in 1963.
Ooh, in 63?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he just played with Miles, I was a kid. He was about 5-6 years older than me. And, it was more just hanging with him. Maybe he showed me a diminished scale or something, but basically it was just talking. He was talking about Ravel and Oscar Peterson and Wooden Kelly, So I had one 6-hour lesson with Bill Evans.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about that.
He just took what is this thing called love and sat at the piano and showed me all these different substitutes and chords. Again, it was more like, this is Bill Evans. Oh my God.
Right.
And I don't know that I even remember anything he said as much as I felt Bill Evans,
Just to be near him and just watch his hands and show you all those reharms. My gosh.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
I just went up to him at the Vanguard. Went to see him. I used to see him there very often, Village Vanguard. And one time I said, Bill, you think I could have a lesson with you? He said, come on up. He was living with Warren Bernhardt, which is a great piano player also.
Sure.
And they were sharing a place uptown and didn't charge me, just hung out. And oh my God.
That's incredible. Just incredible. That's being a little younger than you. That's the one thing I'm so jealous of, is that I didn't get a chance to hear a lot of my idols like Bill Evans. So I'm living vicariously through you, and I'll probably dream about a 6-hour lesson between you and him tonight, and what might transpire just in that. Dream.
The interesting thing is I was studying with Lenny Tristano at the time.
Oh wow!
I studied with Lenny 3 years. He was familiar with Lenny's playing. He was influenced by Lenny's playing.
Sure.
So that would be an hour of the 6 hours. We're just talking about and how do you play those bass lines, play those. We'd get into that,
Wow.
He'd walk around with a little book, Bill, when he'd be on the subway. It had a treble and bass clefs, very small, and he'd hear a little lick and he'd write it down and turn into a song like Elsa or something like that. Yeah.
That's so incredible. So wow. So you studied with Lenny Tristano, the great Lenny Tristano, Bill Evans, Herbie Hancock you had some time with. But uniquely, always to me, when I hear you, you sound like Mike. And I just love that you have a sound. And I've been listening to your music for a long time, but of course, preparing for this interview with you, I've been checking it out quite a bit. And I wanted to play something actually from something you did to start off tonight, something you did with, I think it's Unreleased, with Joe LaBarbera and Larry Grenadier.
Yeah, Unreleased.
Yeah, the great drummer Joe LaBarbera, who I'm close with and have had the pleasure of playing with. Larry Grenadier, I'm a huge fan of, but haven't played with him. Tell us a little bit about this recording that we're about to hear.
We went into Capitol Studios in the mid-'90s, and there was a lovely gentleman who had a record company, and he wanted to put out this jazz album. Sadly, he passed away. So, his wife gave me the tapes, and I just have the tapes. I mean, it's like welcome to show business. So
yeah.
This will be its live performance. First time anyone hears it.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for letting us share this tonight. Okay.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's hear it. Here we go. If you're just joining, this is an encounter interview with the very talented and excellent Mike Garson, and we're going to hear F Blues with Joe LaBarbera on drums and Larry Grenadier on bass and Mike Garson on piano. Whoa, let's start it from the beginning. How about that?
Just so we know where one is.
Wow. Yeah, Mike.
That's a little too fast for me. I can't count that fast
Oh
anymore.
man, you sound brilliant. Wow, that's great. With the
Joe
with,
is such a pleasure to work with
I
on
was going to
drums.
ask you about Joe because he's one of my favorite people. Yeah.
He would have to be, and you would sound great with him, and your touch and his touch. I
Mm,
mean, he was Bill Evans' last drummer, as you know, and in the late '90s, I went with him and Mark Johnson, who was the bass player with Bill on his last couple of years. Also,
sure.
I went with them to Iceland to
Ooh,
play some jazz shows, and the most exciting thing that occurred for me is I wanted to play Nardis with them because Bill played Nardis
I
with them,
love how Bill played Nardis.
and,
Oh,
and Joe must have 80 versions of it, and I probably had 40, and I heard him do it live 20 times.
right.
So I wanted to play with them, and I'll just never forget the solo Mark Johnson played. My mouth was opening,
Oh,
and it was a great song. I actually did it at Soka University with Joe and Derek Oles
oh,
15 years ago.
oh, very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, he's a wonderful drummer to play with, and he's also a great teacher.
Right.
And he's a good writer, and he's had some great bands
Yeah,
through the years, and his
that's
whole
true.
family is so talented.
Oh man, I know the La Barbara clan, so talented.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, I remember one of my first experiences seeing him live. It might have been the
Hmm.
first time I saw him live. He was playing with Brad Meldau at the Jazz Bakery in LA,
That's right.
and it was with Darek
With
Oles.
Derek, right?
And I was just blown away because it was right as Brad Meldau was coming onto the scene with
I
Warner
remember.
Brothers and with introducing Brad Meldau, and I was there every night, front row, just in awe, of course, of Brad, but also Joe and Darek. They were just forces of nature. I was like, so yeah, and both I've had the pleasure of thankfully working with a little bit. Darek's on one of my early records, and he's another amazing musician. Yeah,
He's
something
an
else.
amazing bass player. And he comes out of the Charlie Hayden School,
Right.
and uh,
Yes.
I've been playing with him on and off since the '90s, and he just has grown and grown and grown.
Yeah.
And initially, when I started playing, it really reminded me of Charlie. I had played. There was a jazz club in New York City in the late '60s. They didn't allow drums, so it was just bass and piano.
Oh wow.
And Charlie, I played with a few nights.
Ooh.
Richard Davis and Steve Davis, all these guys. There was no drums, and it was real fun to play piano with these kind of bass players.
Yeah,
And
sure.
Charlie was just ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I want to check in with some of our viewers because we have some really wonderful people that are here tonight and getting some folks from Canada, from Philadelphia. Hello from Minnesota. Hi, Deborah. Milwaukee. Um, gosh, we got a lot of viewers here. I think there's a lot of fans of yours. Greg Karukas is here. He says hi.
Oh, hi, Greg.
Hey, Greg. Yeah. John Prue, a good friend, is here. Hey, John. John's a great pianist and vocalist. Yeah, and someone asked, because this is something, we'll maybe just switch gears just for a second because we have a lot more of your music to play, especially in the jazz idiom. But you recently produced an incredible, and I just caught a little bit of it, Bowie celebration, David Bowie celebration. And someone was asking here, Christine from Albany. She says, everyone loved the Celebrating Bowie event last month. How did you go about selecting the songs for the evening? Thank you for being so available for us in this sad and challenging time. Do you want to maybe share a little bit of insight on that wonderful event you produced?
I was supposed to be on tour like many musicians and artists at this time, so I couldn't be. And I've every year done something on David's birthday. And this was his 5th year since he had passed, and I just felt I had to do something. So I called 40 musicians that were alumni, all had worked with David at different times from 1969 through 2014 or 15.
Wow.
And nobody said no. And then I went on a crusade of calling many of my friends and singers that I've known through the years who were very influenced by David, such as Trent Reznor and Billy Corgan and Duran Duran and Joe Elliott and Ian Hunter, all these great musicians, and then some younger people like Taylor Momsen and Youngblood, these talented people who loved David, and nobody said no. So I had 30 singers. I started off with 18 songs. It was an hour and a half show, and I ended up with 36 songs. And to answer her question, I could have done 80 songs, but everyone wanted to kill me because it was under COVID conditions, and to get all that done, people are recording from London, Switzerland, California, New York, and to put it all together, it was very challenging. But I love the final result because everybody put their heart in it. They worked very hard, and I did 18 songs like the record, but that doesn't bring me that much joy. I knew I had to do that for the fans. What I wanted to do was 18 other songs, which I did, which I made all new arrangements, string quartets, piano and voice, things like that. And that was coming from David Bowie's mentality, where you always keep pushing the limits and you don't just rest on your laurels. I love the original recordings, but I've done them 1,000 times with David in concerts,
Sure.
So this was a chance to take Galen Dorsey, for example, who is our bassist and a wonderful singer, and we did a string quartet version of an obscure Bowie song called Strangers When We Meet, and the quality of her voice, and it's just piano and live string quartet. But each member of the string quartet recorded in their house. They couldn't even be together.
Yeah.
But everyone had a click, so you wouldn't know it. And then we put them on a screen, and it looked like we were playing together.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know the technology that it enables us to do these kind of things now, but from what I saw, it was above and beyond. And I mean, it just sounds incredible. It looks incredible. So if you're welcome. Thank you. If people sadly missed it, is it going to be replayed at some point, or can they find it somewhere? Tell us
Right
about that.
now, there are 2 YouTubes up there.
Oh.
Duran doing 5 years. They've released it. And on YouTube, there is a Fashion, which is a Bowie song that Trent Reznor did with his wife, and the Bowie alumni playing, and I played a little piano on it, not much because it didn't require much piano, but it's on YouTube. So those 2 are out there, and we'll see how things unfold as the months go by. But
cool.
It was a very interesting project because I treated each song like I was making a record, because that's all. I was sitting home right where I am now, every day another song. And the nice thing is you could fix your wrong notes and fix the rhythm, and you can't do that live,
Right.
I missed that live interaction, but I liked making the music as perfect as I could,
Sure.
at least on my side of things.
Sure, yeah. Wow, very cool. Very cool project. That's awesome. Well, let's get back into a little bit more music, shall we? I have to tell all those who are watching, and thanks everybody for checking in and spending some time with myself and Mike Garson here. He sent me a Dropbox folder of things to choose from. And I was like, how am I going to do this? They're all great. So, and then he said, before we went live, he said, I would pick probably all different things today. So it's nice to have a lot of things to choose from. But I'm liking that we're kind of going back to some of your early recordings and even some things that haven't been released yet. So we're giving a little bit of a special tinge to the whole thing tonight. And actually, this next one I'd love to play is from something you did live with the fantastic, mind-blowing clarinetist Eddie Daniels. And this is just a duo of you guys playing a Charlie Parker composition, Donna Lee. When was this recorded? And this hasn't come out, right? This is not...
Never came out. We just did it for 1,300 clarinet players.
Right.
So somewhere in the middle of the country, somewhere in the early 90s, maybe.
Okay. Right.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to listen to maybe the whole thing because it's so burning. It's 5 minutes, but it's so good. I hope you enjoyed, everyone. This is Mike Garson on piano and the wonderful Eddie Daniels on clarinet with Donna Lee. just love your comping behind him. So delicate. Yeah, Tatum, eat your heart out, baby. Wow. That is something else, Mike. Wow.
That was fun. You seem to be picking some pretty fast tempos there. I'm getting nervous here listening to that. So in the middle, in that, I was practicing a lot in that period of time. And usually when I have no work and I'm not touring, I like to just practice. So I had found some Oscar Peterson performance of Donna Lee or Indiana. So I played some of that when I went into their double time. So I can't take full credit for the solo. Some of it is me, some of it is him. It's me when
I heard the Indiana quote.
Yeah, and it's me when I couldn't play him. So wow. It was a lot of fun. But between the two of us, I think we've changed the definition of less is more to more is less.
Yeah.
We used to play a lot of notes together.
Yeah. Well, it's still very musical, and listening to it, you have an effortless, well, to quote a Kenny Werner book title, effortless mastery.
Yeah,
And listening to you comp, being a pianist, of course, myself, I'm really honing in on your comping behind Eddie, and it's so delicate and bouncy and buoyant, but never getting in the way. I mean, I think you could just look at that as a masterclass in accompaniment, just on how you were accompanying Eddie, and where to fill and how to propel the motion from one measure to a phrase to another phrase. And then Eddie, I mean, is just a master himself, and I've had a couple opportunities to play on records with him and hang out with him. In fact, one of the last things I did before COVID was I was visiting him in New Mexico, and was over at his place, and we were having a ball just playing duets, and he was, just blowing me away with his musicianship. I was jet lagged, and he was like, come on, let's keep playing. And I'm like, I'm tired, whatever. And he's yeah, he's just something else. You guys still working together here and there?
We haven't worked in, Jesus, 20 years.
Oh, okay. Well, you have a nice connection. I hope you do something at some point again.
We did some a classical show together. Well, the first half was classical. We did a Poulenc sonata and some sonata. It was a classical one earlier, like 1800s, where the piano part was harder than the clarinet part, and it took me months to learn it.
Oh, wow.
I remember the jazz critic Leonard Feather came to the show. We did it somewhere in L.A.
Oh, wow. Leonard Feather, yeah.
The gentleman who wrote Laura, the composer.
Raxon.
He came to the show.
David Raxon. Wow,
David
how
Raxon.
Cool.
And so we did this classical the first half, and we did the jazz in the second. It was very nice.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's somebody that is obviously adept at both. I mean, just incredible artist. Wow.
I wrote a classical piece for Eddie and two other very excellent classical players, one from Chicago Symphony, one from the Met or something, and it was a very difficult piece. And,
oh, wow.
They performed it. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
My life is strange because one day I'm doing that. In fact, the piece that I wrote for them, I had to send another pianist because the same day I got a call to be playing 80 miles from wherever we were in Chicago with the Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh.
So I had to say, I'm sorry, Eddie, I'm going to go with the 3 chords. I'm sorry. Which
is a testament to your demand over the years as just a very versatile musician, One day you're performing a classical piece, then something that's in the jazz idiom, and then you're in the rock idiom. Any thoughts on that? How you kind of switch gears, or how you arrive to that cornucopia, that kind of plethora of imagination in your music? I'm just curious. I know you have a lot of different influences, but how do you balance it all?
The hardest part, Josh, is when you switch over from one thing to the next. I was playing, I got commissioned to do a work at the Kennedy Center of the Music of Duke Ellington.
Wow.
With a string quartet and a jazz quintet. And I did these arrangements. And then one day we were in Tanglewood performing this. The next day, I was playing at the Wilton Theater in Los Angeles with 9 Inch Nails. And it's that transfer when I'm switching gears,
right?
A little rebooting of my mind. That's when I have some problems. Once I land in the music, because I remember when I got on stage in rehearsal with 9 Inch Nails, there was a piece we were doing, I think it's called Becoming, from the Fragile album that I did with 9 Inch Nails in 2000, and it was in 10/4. But you have, the band is very tight and it's very straight notes. And I was coming from the jazz gig, I was swinging the eighth notes a little bit. And I remember Trent Reznor saying, Mike, can you tighten it up a little bit? It's a little loose for playing with the click like that. So I said, oh, yeah, it just came from a jazz gig. So I made the rhythm much tighter. So there is a problem sometimes when I switch over. But in terms of the music, I never forced it. It's like whatever I like, I play, because I don't see a whole lot of boundaries for me. And I just always loved classical. I like rock. I like jazz.
Yeah, you love it all.
I play fusion, and sometimes it's hard keeping all the things up. But usually before any project, I spend some time tuning into that world, so I, regenerate that cellular memory and the musical memory and the vocabulary. Sadly, the last maybe 10, 20 years, I haven't been playing as much jazz as I used to. I've been writing a lot of classical music, but I miss it too, because I just love the idiom of jazz, and hearing these pieces, while in some ways I play better now and a little cleaner and a little more relaxed, it still was me at those periods of time,
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Thanks for that. Yeah, well, let's switch let's downshift, I guess, to a little slower tempo and go into the kind of your classical world and your influence in this piece that you sent that I've always adored, this Frederick Chopin Prelude in E minor, but it's your take on it and your arrangement, I'm assuming, correct?
It is.
It's just beautiful. And for all those just joining us, we're spending some time with the great Mike Garson. Thank you for being here tonight, wherever you are in the world. Really appreciate you tuning in. And Mike and I actually go back some years. We were figuring it out last night. We go back about 16, 17, maybe even 18 years now. And you sat in at Spazio in Sherman Oaks, California. And I think that was one of our first encounters. So we've had a long term relationship, but actually just really getting to know each other a little better in these more recent times, which is really interesting. So
I love that.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for spending some time with me. So this is Mike Garson playing Prelude in E minor. Mm. Wow. Just beautiful. Nice playing, Mike. Beautiful treatment of that gorgeous melody by Frederick Chopin. That's Prelude in E minor. Was that released?
I coined the term when it came out in 1980 called jazzical, and I mixed classical and jazz, and so it was jazzical. And
1980.
That's when it came out.
Jazzical. I love that. That's so great.
Maybe 1,000 people bought the vinyl at the time. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm gonna look for that one unless you have some extra copies, because I collect vinyl, and that one I want on vinyl. It sounds so beautiful.
Unfortunately, we had a fire at our home 2 years ago, so we lost everything. We lost everything.
Yes,
I don't think you could find it. Yeah, but
so sorry.
Maybe you'll see someone somewhere, but I don't know. There was only a few thousand people at the time who bought it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're getting lots of comments and people checking in and saying beautiful arrangement and just lovely. Oh, yeah, a lot of great comments. For us Bowie fans, my friend Fred says, can you ask how that relationship started? Kind of going back to Bowie. I know that's a topic that you is probably maybe talked about a lot, but I'm also curious how you got started with him.
Well, in 1972, I was playing a lot of jazz in New York, and I had worked 3 nights with Elvin Jones.
Oof.
Changed my life.
Oh my gosh.
I was playing with people like Mike Brecker and Randy Brecker and Dave Liebman. I was playing in a jazz club on Broadway, 69th Street. I forgot the name of it. With Dave Liebman, Pete LaRocca was the drummer.
Oh, he's so great.
Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And Eddie Gomez was the bass player.
Wow.
And
what a band.
It was an amazing band.
Yeah.
And I looked around in the club, and there was 5 people there. And I made $5.
Wow.
And I was married. My daughter at that time, Jennifer, was just 1 or 2 years old. And I came home and I said to my wife, Susan, I said, I don't know, I have to do 30 of these a month to make $150, which was what the rent was at the time. And then what about the phone? So I said, as a joke, maybe I should go out with a rock band. And the next night, Bowie called.
Wow.
But I didn't know who he was. And the same night, Woody Herman called. Well, I something was in the air or something. I don't know if it was the short grain brown rice I was eating at the time as a macrobiotic. But in any case, I took the Bowie gig. It sounded very interesting to me, even though I didn't know who he was. And I was only hired for 8 weeks.
Oh.
And I ended up being the longest standing member, played over 1,000 shows with him,
Gosh.
20 albums. But go figure, you know.
Wow.
When I did the first Ziggy Stardust tour in 72, I'd actually sneak out into the audience because I wasn't playing on every song and watch. And I said, this is the rock version of Miles Davis. In other words, he was always changing, chameleon-like. Every musician he ever had was great. He loved jazz. Our first discussion was about Charlie Mingus and Stan Kenton. And David had actually played saxophone. And he wanted to be a sax player, but he just said he wasn't that great at it. And he had a proclivity towards writing songs and singing, and the rest is history.
Wow.
But he used to ask me about Lenny Tristano and my jazz lessons and the shows with Monk that I used to go see and all. You know, so it was very comfortable. And I think he saw me as the icing on the cake, and I could put some jazz or some classical or some avant-garde music on top of some of his rock stuff. It
Sure.
seemed to work, but he was bold enough to give me the opportunity.
Right.
You know?
Right. But what a great thing you gave his music, because I was re-listening to a few versions, including the original of Aladdin Sane. And what a adventuresome track for when it came out. I mean, you're playing so cool. And it's just really interesting shapes. And then going to a live one I found on YouTube of probably one of the tribute shows from recent. And you're including all these new references. I hear Rhapsody in Blue that you get into, and it was just cool to hear how you did it then, and then the journey, and then how you brought that, you know, your world and your influences into that performance. That was just mind blowing. Yeah.
But I actually give David the credit for that solo, because I played a blues solo on take one over the two chords. I just played a blues solo, and he said, no, that's kind of
like not into it.
Commonplace. He wasn't into it. Then I played something like a little Latin, because it was those two chords, and everyone knew.
Tequila, yeah, right.
So he said, no. He said, you told me you played some avant-garde
right.
music and jazz in town. I told him I was into Cecil Taylor, and he said, play something that's really avant-garde. And it was one take. I actually never heard the track for maybe 10 or 15 years.
Oh, wow.
It was just a session for me in London, and it seems to have stood the test of time. The only
right.
thing is, all the Bowie world, that's how they know me. So they have no idea of me playing with Eddie Daniels or the jazz trio or my classical music.
Yeah.
And they're more than happy to just like me in that world, and I'm happy about that. But I'm not doing that all the time, and most of the time I'm just either writing classical music or working on a jazz piece or something.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to hopefully share some of your brilliance, in the jazz and classical world with some of your Bowie fans that might not be as aware.
Thank you.
We have a question here from Eric Lopez. Can you ask Mike how was the piano inspiration for Heart's Filthy Lesson? Because that song is a very rare tempo on piano, classic and jazzy in some parts.
What does he want to know?
He wants to know about the inspiration behind the piano on Heart's Filthy Lesson.
Yeah. So we were in Switzerland at Montreux, right next door to where the Montreux Jazz Festival is. And there was a studio there that the band Queen used to record in. And David took us over there with several of his favorite musicians through the years, Brian Eno, myself, and Reeves Gabrels, Sterling Campbell, Carlos Alomar. And he said, we're going to improvise for a few weeks without anybody saying any keys, any chords, any songs. And they had two Sony tape recorders, 24-track machines connected. So we had 48 tracks. This is 1994. And he said, we'll just improvise 2, 3, 4 hours a day for a couple of weeks and leave it to us, and Brian and myself, this is David talking, we'll put an album together. So I'm sitting in the piano room, so to speak, a little booth with a beautiful Steinway, German Steinway. I was in heaven. And I sat around, and since we were all, David was with an easel painting, Mr. Bowie, he was painting, we're improvising, and I just started something in F sharp minor. I think I went like this. And the band started to play, and that became Heart's Filthy Lesson, and it turned out to be the end song of the movie Seven.
Wow.
And in the middle there's a crazy solo, one of those kind of things like Tchaikovsky, and David liked it. But it was an improv. It was an improv. And then he wrote some lyrics, and that's it. That's how it came about.
Wow. That's so cool. Thanks for answering that. That's really great. Beautiful. Well, you want to play something for us? You got your keyboard fired up there. You feeling like something?
Yeah, sure,
You've
sure.
been tempting my ears by playing live.
Well, since I think I'll balance out those two fast tempos with three ballads. Is that okay?
Oh, it would be okay with me. I'm sure everyone else would agree. We'd love to hear you play whatever you want. I'd love to hear some ballad playing from you. Absolutely.
I would like to play uh, a song I wrote for my wife, Susan. I think that's the name of it. It's still Susan. And I'd like to play a song I wrote for my daughters called Lullaby for Our Daughters. And since it's a family kind of a thing, one of your shows, I heard a most gorgeous song with one of your guests, who's a great pianist and composer, Larry Goldings, and he had that song called Benny's Dream. And I'd like to play just a little bit of those three things because they all remind me of family.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mike. Beautiful. Wow. Just lovely, Mike. Oh, I loved it. I loved the interweaving of those three songs. And Lori Bell's here. She says hi.
Hi, Lori.
Yeah, and she
What a
played
great flute player.
Yeah, one of my favorite musicians and people. And she just talked about playing that first one with you, Lullaby for Our Daughters, I think, right? Yeah. Just beautiful touch and emotional and powerful. Thank you. What a privilege to have this time with you this evening, just talking about your career and playing some older tracks, but then getting a live in-person performance. I can't thank you enough. This is really special.
Well, in a few months, hopefully the technology will catch up and we'll be able to play in real time together.
Right.
We can't now, but we will do that.
Yeah.
We'll play some duets. That'd be fun.
I would love that. In fact, someone commented a little earlier that we should do some kind of duo concert or recording at some point, and that would be really, really fun with you.
We could do it with our friend Jim Murata. We'll do it at Soka. Yeah, why not? Why not? Why not?
Absolutely. Wow. Oh, man, just beautiful. That just put me in a beautiful space, thinking about family and how COVID has just been such a hard time and everything going on in politics and getting to know you and your family and how special that is. And, it's just beautiful, man. Really, really lovely. Thank you. Yeah. So we got a lot more music to get to here. I mean, maybe we should listen to a couple more things. What do you think?
What else you have there?
I got that cool piece from Serendipity, The Promise.
Oh, wow.
You want to listen to that?
What else you have?
Okay. Got Monk's Dream, Ballade in G sharp minor.
Let's listen to Monk's Dream.
Okay. Yeah. Now, this is from a newer Monk record you did, right?
Yeah, I was going to tell you about this. The album is called Monk Fell on Me.
Right.
I put it up on iTunes, probably 4 people bought it, but that's not the point. The title, I was at the Village Vanguard watching Monk play.
Oof.
And when Charlie Rouse, the sax player, would solo, Monk would get up and dance sort of in a circle. Now, let's say maybe he was a little drunk, perhaps. And let's say that maybe he weighed 250, 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And I'm right off the stage. There were these seats at the Village Vanguard where you're 10 feet from the piano. Because I got there first, I had to see this guy. And I saw Monk many times, and he's going around in a circle. He starts to fall. I jumped out of my seat and caught him. Consequently, the title, Monk Fell on Me.
Oh, wow. What a moment.
Oh, yeah, I was so happy. I was so happy.
Sure.
Monk fell on me.
Monk fell on me.
Therefore.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a great story. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, we're going to hear from Monk Fell on Me, that record. This is the great Mike Garson spending some time with me tonight. Thanks all for listening. This is Monk's Dream. Hope you enjoy it. Yeah, I love that. What a really adventuresome reading of that piece.
Well, you know, in
I
the
love it.
in the '60s, one of my other teachers who I didn't mention was
Yeah.
Hal Overton, and Hal Overton did the Monk arrangements for the Big Band's album that
Okay.
Monk did in
Oh,
'63.
yes.
Yes,
Sure. I've heard that.
and
Yeah.
so
Wow.
he also taught at the New School, and he would bring Monk's rhythm section, and I got to play with them these songs. It was part of my lesson, and he had a treasure chest. This is long before we had access to these solos and these songs, and he
Right.
would pull out every week in my lesson. He took out,
Right.
and I get to play off minor and these different things. So I fell in love with Monk's music very early, and I kind of resonated with his mind and his creativity
Yeah.
and his composition. So I knew sometime in my life I would do a tribute album to him, which is this album, Monk Fell on Me.
Yeah. Well, it's brilliant. I need to hear the rest of it. I haven't heard it.
I'll send it over to you.
Oh, I'd love it. Thank you. Where do you attribute your freedom in rhythm? Was there a specific teacher that was showing you shapes like that, where the time keeps moving and you're playing hemiolas, or getting a little nerdy here for some folks maybe, but over the bar line phrasing, or clusters that move against the pulse in a different way? Where would you attribute some of that adventuresome searching in your rhythmic styling?
It started off with someone screaming at me for having bad rhythm when I was 12. So I was abused and bullied. This is my Me Too version. This is like the guy was screaming, rhythm, rhythm, rhythm. And I didn't know what he was talking about, because I was playing like, I'm playing all the Chopin, but nobody ever taught me about pulse, so I would just be playing. So I got conscious of it, and I tried to turn the lemon into lemonade, and practiced for many years with a metronome. And then I practiced with the metronome on 2 and 4.
Right.
And then I started playing with all kinds of great drummers, and they tortured me because their time was better than mine. So I kept practicing, and one day I had the realization that I like timelessness within time. So I got the concept of a rubber band, and the music, it's an extension in a way of rubato, but you're able to hear the time, but do all kinds of things with it. So in the 90s, when I was touring with David Bowie, we had tracks we were listening to that had additional sounds plus the live band. And when we first started playing with it, the only people who kept the click in their ears was the drummer and myself. And the first few months, we were off. Then the second 2 or 3 months, we were stiff. By the 6th, 7th, 8th month of the tour, we were like rubber bands. We could hear the metronome, hear the band. We could play on top of the beat, behind, on it. And so I experienced it in rock music. And the whole Monk album is done to a click. What you just heard is to a click.
Wow.
Now, it's still rubber banding, but
Sure.
it's to a click.
Yeah.
And I did it for the self-imposed discipline.
Right.
Because one would think that if you're playing with a click, you'd be stiff. I then found out one of my friends was the original drummer with Sly and the Family Stone. And in the 70s, 2 drummers that I know played with him, Sly was working with a click track on those tunes that are so funky. So that's as much as I could say right now without doing a whole subject on rhythm. But I believe that in all the universities around the world, there's a missing class that comes before rhythm, which I would call pulse. So teachers start teaching eighth notes and quarters and triplets and hemiolas and 3 against 2. But what are you putting it on if you don't have the steady river and infrastructure, which is the pulse to place this stuff on?
Right.
And your greatest musicians, be it Stan Getz or Miles or Coltrane or Horwitz, or if you watch Dudamel conducting, you could feel the time but it's unstated. You watch Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder play, the pulse is it's gigantic. But we get to hear the notes, we hear all that, and we don't realize it's based on that. There's a pulse going, and we take it for granted. So I would offer a course in pulses if I was teaching in a university, and spend, before you started play rhythms, just get a groove going.
Right.
So in funk music, you talk about it being a certain kind of groove. In jazz, we call it a swing, whatever it is. Fusion, it's tighter, but they all have this thing in common.
Right.
Nobody talks about it because the great musicians have it innately. In my case, I had to learn it. I had terrible time. My time was horrible.
Well, it's parlayed into a really beautiful style that you have that's really unique. So thanks for sharing your views on that. I saw someone comment, said, no, it's not nerdy. This stuff we don't hear very often. So we'll have to do part 2 where maybe we go in even deeper into a conversation with you about some of these kinds of subjects, because they're fascinating to me and probably to some other folks too, especially those in music and education and figuring out, how to impart the information in the best way. That's something actually I struggle with some students. They want to, and you could probably agree with this, I think, they want to get to the notes. They want to get to the speed. They'll drop beats. It doesn't matter, and I end up talking about making it feel good. And as soon as they start to do that, everything like just magically starts to fall into place. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, and now that's musical. Because I had a teacher tell me that. Actually, John Clayton, the great bassist, he was one of the first people to just look at me and said, you're playing all the right stuff, but it doesn't feel good yet. I need to dance. Get me dancing. And so I really worked on that with him. And I'll never forget that moment of him just saying that. I'm like, oh man, you gotta dance in this music? And he's like, well, yeah, man, this is music. It's all about groove and pulse.
It's a hard subject to teach. But as teachers, if someone wants to know, it's our job to impart. So I'll show students, for example, pulse with a D minor prelude of Bach. I'll go. And I'll show them that. It's still Bach. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they'll have an epiphany because the pulse is in the pedal tone.
Right.
Right? And they get the idea.
Yep. That's beautiful. Well demonstrated too.
Sort of. It was a little shaky.
Great. Yeah, people are loving it. Oh, we're getting some great comments.
You got some questions? Any questions from anyone?
Let's see. So many people just loving you. Someone said about your Bowie meeting, my understanding was that he auditioned and was hired instantly. Not quite.
Yeah, so there's
right?
a David Bowie song called Changes.
Oh, yeah,
and
of course.
It goes... And that's what I played. And
I love Changes. Yeah.
Oh, and I played 7 seconds, and he said, "You got the gig."
Wow.
That was it. That's all I played.
That's it.
I never even got to. Never got there.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, there's not too many questions, just people posting stuff. Mike was the stunt double playing as Liberace in the 1988 TV movie about Liberace, played by Andrew Robinson. So there was a comment there. It's not a question.
I did all the piano playing.
Did you?
I did all the piano playing.
Oh, wow.
And I had to teach Andrew Robinson, who played the serial killer in Dirty Harry. He looks like
Oh,
Liberace.
sure. I remember him. Yeah, sure.
And I had to show him how to play. We used to talk about Monk on the breaks, but he didn't know how to play the piano. So I'd be going up on an arpeggio and he going down, and they're filming him. I'm saying, no, you got to go the other direction. But I had to learn all Tchaikovsky piano concerto and Chopin and Debussy. They only used portions of it, but I didn't know how much they were using. I had to work on that music for 6 months. It was very humbling because I was a little bit of a snobby jazz musician, well, Liberace. But I'll tell you, I humbled out pretty quickly because that boy could play.
He could play. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like people kind of gloss over that major part of his story and his personality. I mean, he could really
He was the highest paid act in Vegas in 1970, $250,000 a week.
Wow.
So my classical training was based on Horowitz and people like that. So if I'm playing, I would play that way. But when I was filming it, the director was insisting I do this. Because that's how he did it. And that drove me crazy because I would miss the notes. And I had his 10 rings on and I'm dressed in his costumes. And
wow.
I'll tell you a great story. When I auditioned for the gig, they said, put this wig on and here are his rings. But these are costume jewelry. So I had 10 rings on and I go into Hollywood. This is 1988 or something. And I'm showing all my friends. At 2 a.m, I get a phone call. Where are you? Those are the real rings. I was walking around with $1 million worth of rings. I said, why didn't you tell me that? They said, well, we didn't know you, so we told you it was costume jewelry. Wow. Good thing I wasn't mugged.
Oh, my goodness. Did you see the HBO movie with Mike Douglas playing Liberace?
I did.
It was pretty good. I liked it. What'd you think?
It was pretty good. I always, when I see these movies on Charlie Parker or Dexter Gordon or whatever, I like to see more about how they practice and how they played in the creative process. I'm not so interested in the sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Yeah, they definitely.
That's how I've always been. You know, but people like that. It's okay, but I just want to know. You know, I don't want to know that Charlie Parker used heroin. I want to know how many hours he practiced and how he figured out those licks.
The important stuff.
And they don't show enough of that.
Right.
You know,
I agree. Okay.
But so it was a great movie, and he's a great actor.
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah.
It was
well,
great,
you asked if there are questions. Now they're coming in. So if you have do you have some extra time to answer a few questions?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. We have Emma saying, do you have a favorite piano you like to play? I guess make or whatever.
I mean, I've been a Yamaha artist for 35 years, and my piano is a 9-foot disc clavier, which is a modern-day player piano. So it suits my purposes as a composer, because as soon as I write the piece or improvise the piece, the piano will play it back. So it's an absolute beautiful tool for me. But I also love Steinways, and I love Bosendorfers. When I did the Liberace show, I played all Baldwin, because Liberace was a Baldwin artist. But when I did the Aladdin Sane album at Chardon Studio, London, they had a Bechstein, gorgeous piano.
Ooh, yes.
I'm kind of a piano freak. I wish I was playing my concert grand tonight. I'm playing a digital piano for you, so I can't get all the subtleties when I'm playing the ballads. But at least it's clear and in tune during COVID and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. Gary says missed it. Where'd it go? I am curious if Mike liked playing organs and synth in concert, or is it mostly piano?
In the early days, I played Hammond and B3, and there were gigs when I was playing with Stanley Clark Fusion. I used to play all kinds of synths and mini. I'm pretty good at them, but I just love the piano, you know. I played the original Fender Rhodes when they came out.
Oh, wow.
And my sister, when I was 14 in 1959, bought me the original Wurlitzer pianos.
Oh, yeah.
Which are on all those albums, The Doors and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I set it up in my bathroom because I had the grand piano in the living room, but I always wanted to be practicing, so I'd be practicing when I was in the bathroom on the Wurlitzer.
Wow. That's cool. Nice. Let's see. Eric wants to know, what is the most iconic or special piece that you have composed and why? A lot of pieces you've written.
I've written close to 6,000 pieces.
Wow.
One of the most interesting pieces I wrote was a symphonic healing suite.
I was going to ask about that one, actually.
Yeah. Next time, I'll send you some of that stuff. We will do a part 2,
I think
part
so.
3, part 4, whatever. There's no shortage. Nothing brings me more joy than hanging with another piano player who understands, and then you share, and then others have their own inspiration, and that's what it's about. Pay it forward, right?
Yeah, man.
But there was a few pieces in the Symphonic Healing Suite because we tested out some of my music on many patients, and they chose the suite. I gave them 30 pieces, and they picked their favorite 12. So there are a lot of pieces there that just have a lot of heart in them. They're not virtuosic like the Ballade and G sharp minor that I sent you that you might play, things like that. They're just beautiful pieces of music, more like second movement of symphonies or sonatas. So that was some of, because I saw it change people's lives. So that was important to me. And I love the lullaby that I wrote for my daughters. The simpler,
That's
the
so
better.
beautiful.
You know, so simple.
Yes.
You know, and
gorgeous.
You know,
Yeah.
I've written. You know, it's hard to remember what I have written, but I in the 90s, 1 out of 10 pieces I liked that I would write. So I wrote a lot so I could find those good ones.
Right.
Now I only sort of write when I feel it. Then I was writing as a discipline every day. Because if they tell you want to be a good writer, write a couple of 100 songs, write a few books, write a few 100 books, write a few 100 lyrics, you know.
Right.
So I took that philosophy, you know, and, you know, a lot of film composers, they just would write several bars every day. One of the film composers you were talking about a few weeks ago, he passed away. Jerry Goldsmith used to write every day.
Yeah.
And so I did that for many, many years. And now I just write when I feel inspired. But when I was writing every day, there's something that happens to your chops and your mind. And,
Sure.
you know, but they're not all great. So it would be 1 out of 10 at that time. You know? Yeah.
Very good. Just a couple more here. My friend Fred is here, and he's asked the Grammy-nominated soundtrack with Trent Reznor. How did that come about and evolve?
Was it Watchmen?
I think.
Or
he's
was that God Girl?
Well, I know. I was wondering if it was Gone Girl. Maybe it was. Maybe Fred. Yeah. Well, either one you'd like to speak about.
Well, on the Watchmen, it opens the first 6 months as me playing piano. I composed the piece, and it's sort of like silent movie music from the 1920s, 100 years ago, but it takes a left twist, so it gets kind of distorted. So that was interesting. And then I did some supportive music on Gone Girl. I don't know, you know, Trent calls me when he can't play something, you know.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant musician.
He
and
sure is.
So talented. But when he, you know, feels like needs something that's out of his wheelhouse, he calls me. So we've been doing this for many, many years together. By the way, on the Bowie celebration, he did a great version of Fashion, which you could see on YouTube. But we also did a piano and vocal version of Fantastic Voyage.
That's
and very
beautiful.
obscure
Yes.
Very nice.
Very nice. I heard that one. Gorgeous.
And David Bowie told me in 1995, he said, watch out for this guy. He's going to be the future. And next thing you know, he's winning Oscars and Grammys.
Wow.
Very creative and a beautiful person.
Absolutely. Well, one more here, and this maybe is something you've answered before for all the years you spent with Bowie, but Lacey would like to know the craziest thing that happened on tour with Bowie. G-rated? No, I don't know.
The craziest thing. Okay, so we're coming out of a concert in 1972. Somebody literally jumps out with a scissor to try to cut some of his hair off. It's scary because there's hundreds of people getting around. We managed to get into the limo, and the limo starts to pull out, but I look at the left rear view mirror right outside the car, and there's a guy like this holding on to it parallel to the car as we're driving. And I thought, this is dangerous, you know. And finally, you know, some policemen helped him off. But I mean, coming from the jazz world to that, it was culture shock.
Yeah,
know?
I would say so. Wow, that's a pretty good one. Very nice. Yeah.
There's hundreds of others. Most I can't share. Cannot.
Right.
Will not.
Oh. And then, I had one more. Would you ever write a song that reflected your close friendship with David? That is from Mary. She wants to.
I wrote a piece for him on my album, The Bowie Variations. It's called Tribute to David.
Oh, well, there it is.
So it's online. You can see it.
Okay.
Or hear it. Yeah.
Very good. Well, this has been awesome, and I think we have definitely more than enough discussion points for another meeting and more music. And maybe next time I'll play for you, and maybe we can have a little interaction of some kind. I don't know. I'm getting ideas hanging out with you.
We could probably do 4-bar phrases with
we
a
could
little
trade.
space.
We'll trade. Exactly. I love it.
So we'll have a few 9/4 bars and 7/4 bars. You know.
I love it. I want to thank you, Mike, for being my very special guest tonight, and for all those viewers wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is part of a greater series called the Encounter Hour. You can find more info on this page, Josh Nelson Jazz, Facebook.com, Josh Nelson Jazz, my website, Josh Nelson Music, and Mike. Where do you send people these days to check out what you're up to, news, any touring dates, whenever that happens? Your website?
I guess it's on Facebook or something like that, or Twitter, Instagram.
They can find you.
I think so. I don't usually leave where I am right now, so that's where you could find me. This is where I hang out, right here by the piano, practicing and writing a little bit. But thank you for your time, for your doing this. I think it gives people a chance to be up close and personal with another musician and artist, and you don't have to be a performer to be part of the experience. And it's the music doesn't mean a lot unless someone is receiving it, you know. So,
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah.
So keep up that good work, and I look forward to making some music with you soon.
Oh, thank you so much. Likewise. Okay, everyone have a great night, and be safe out there. Thanks, Mike.
My pleasure.